It's June in Utah. We're prepared for heat. It's freezing. It's supposed to be full of water. Buckskin, why are you so cruel to us? Oh, so how does it look? Am I in camera?
Do you want your hair like that?
It doesn't look good. I'm sure it's fine. Do I blend into the tent?
You do.
I only brought orange shirts. Today we're going to go through Buckskin Gulch. Buckskin Gulch is reportedly the longest and deepest slot canyon in the world. So Buckskin Gulch is located the southern border of Utah, and it actually crosses into Arizona between Kanab and Page. Buckskin Gulch requires permits. I'll put a link to the website. Permits are available on the website. I'm not going to go through all the details of day hiking, camping, overnight, what the rules are within the canyon itself. Go to the website, check it out. You do need a permit. They book the permits 3 months in advance, and they go pretty fast, especially the more ideal seasons. So plan your trip in advance, because if you think you're just going to go next weekend, they're probably sold out. There's several different trailheads. There's Wire Pass, there's Buckskin Gulch itself, there's Whitehouse, and there's also Lee's Ferry. The route we did was to come in through Wire Pass, stay at the confluence at the campgrounds for a couple of nights, and then out through Whitehouse. You have to arrange a shuttle either with your friends or your hiking partners, or you can go through a couple of different businesses, most of them based out of Page. I'll leave a link of who we used. Wire Pass is 1.7 miles, and then it joins up with Buckskin itself. If you take that route, you cut off a couple of miles from the overall trail, and then Buckskin is how long, do we know? Our GPS said 15.5 miles the first time we did it, 14.6 this time. Hang on a second. According to the BLM, it's only 11.5 miles. I don't believe that. It was much harder than 11.5 miles.
11.5 from Wire Pass.
11.5 from Wire Pass, which is actually 13.2. Somewhere between 13.2 and 15.5 miles. Since this is a slot canyon, you want to check the weather. It has a huge watershed. It can rain 30-40 miles from the trailhead. So it can rain and you don't even know it, and it can flood where you are. So check the weather forecast for the surrounding areas. Under no circumstances go in if there's any chance of rain. When we went, it was early July and early June. The reasoning was that it would be the driest conditions you could have. You can go year-round, but obviously you're going to have different conditions depending on when you go. July might not have been the best time. You definitely don't want to go in the monsoon season. If you go in the winter, it's going to be very cold. It could probably be iced over. You're not going to know the thickness of the ice. You break through, you have hypothermic conditions that you have to deal with. In the spring, you're going to have a lot more runoff. The puddles are going to be deeper. I don't even want to call them puddles. They'll be pools at that point. The water's going to be freezing and more of it to deal with. Summer, it's very hot. You need to stay out of the monsoon season, but you do have the benefit of lower water levels in the box canyon itself. Fall is ideal, but if you want to do a hike like this, you need to pick the combinations that are best for you and go at that time. If you're going to try a backpacking trip like this, don't make it your first. You should already have a basic set of items that you take along. So I'm just going to go through what's unique to this particular canyon. I'm not going to go through bring a sleeping bag and a tent. Those are the basics. You should have those down before you come here. Main things that are unique to Buckskin are the walking conditions, and therefore the shoes, and the water and the mud, so the clothing and how to keep things dry. You have to just assume you're going to encounter water. So you want to put your essentials, everything you want to keep dry, camera equipment, any electronics, clothing, sleeping bags, put them in a trash bag or a dry bag inside your backpack to make sure that if you do get in the water and it dunked into it, it keeps what you need dry. Bring a change of clothes, because assume that you're going to look like you've been wrestling in the mud after you get through, and you don't want to go to sleep in your sleeping bag absolutely filthy at the end of the trail. Just assume that you're going to get dirty, you're going to get muddy, you're going to be going through canyon soup, which is anything from just really stinky clear water to something the consistency of Nutella, chocolate pudding. It's unpleasant. You're not going to want to sleep in those clothes. As far as shoes, you really need to understand the walking conditions. You're going to be in deep sand. You're going to be in deep gravel. You're going to be walking all over rocks that vary in size, from the size of a football down to the size of a baseball. You're going to be in the water. You're going to be in the mud. You're going to be climbing over boulders. There's a bunch of varied conditions that you have to deal with in the canyon. I've taken Keen water sandals. I love them. I hike with them all the time. Wear a pair of wool socks with them. The first time we went through, they worked great for me. The second time I went through, it was a lot more wet, and just little pieces of rock and gravel got underneath my foot, and it was miserable. My wife, she sticks with just regular hiking shoes, puts on wool socks, and just goes on through it. It keeps stuff out of your shoe. It's really kind of personal preference. So just look at the conditions that are shown in this video and plan accordingly based on what you prefer. So we're not ultralight backpackers. We like a little bit of luxury when we get to camp. There's a couple of things we brought that are great, like the camp chair, hammock. There's nothing really to sit on if you're going expecting that the camps are going to have these rock chairs and these logs and comfortable things. You're going to be sitting on the sand. If that's something you're fine with, then go for it. It's less to carry, but that's something that I heard other people that camped across the stream from us saying, wow, I wish I brought my hammock when they saw ours. So that's one luxury item. Another thing that is really nice, or would have been nice, we didn't bring it on this trip, is after walking through all these pools of questionable whatever it was we were walking through, canyon stew, it was nasty. It would have really been nice to have like a loofah and some body wash or something to clean up a little bit. Yeah, I really need a bath. It's not a good place to bathe. The water's about an inch thick here, but if I had some soap, I would sure use it. So the trail itself, it starts at Wire Pass, the one that I'm going to go through. It's an open wash that just eventually comes up to this very nondescript looking rock face where you get into Slack Canyons almost immediately. It has one location where you have to climb down, and you'll actually want to hand packs down from one person to the next. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward and fairly easy walking. After about 1.7 miles, you'll come to the confluence with Buckskin. After the confluence, you're now in Buckskin, and it's just a diverse, amazing environment. The videos kind of speak for themselves. It is a slot canyon, and conditions in a slot canyon change. We came across pools of, it changed from horrible mud, sludge material into water. It was June, but it was still freezing cold water. The canyon will close up and have tall slot canyon walls, and then it will open up and you'll be in the sun. It kind of alternates between these environments back and forth for miles until you finally come to the middle pass. Now the middle pass is supposed to be an emergency escape route in case of flash flood. It's the only place that you can get out of Buckskin. You can see from this video that it would be questionable to walk up this. You would definitely want a rope to lower your packs down. The safest way is to just plan to make it all the way to the campsite and not stop at the middle pass. This is for emergencies only. Now, as you pass through the different areas of the canyon, you'll see this debris stuck high up above your head in the canyon walls. It's up to 40-50 feet in some areas. Now that gives you an indication of the kind of water that comes through here and the water level itself. So if you thought you were going to go when it was raining, hopefully this video kind of convinces you otherwise. So here's a video of some blockage that we came across. Now our shuttle driver told us that he comes into this canyon quite often, and not too long before we came through, this blockage was actually continuous from the canyon floor to as high as you see in the video. Water came through and blew out the bottom of it, so we were able to walk under it. But it's just kind of a great example of how the canyon conditions change. So if you read or watch a video saying this is what they were like, just know that they may not be the same conditions that you encounter when you go through. A good example of this is the last major obstacle before you get to the campgrounds, which is a Boulder Fall. There are some steps cut out in the rock face on one side. Sometimes there's a rope there, sometimes there isn't. I wouldn't want to climb down it, and I haven't. It looks really sketchy. When we've gone there, the rabbit hole, they call it, was open. Each time we've gone, the rabbit hole was completely different. The location of it, the conditions of it. So every time a flood comes through, it changes it. If you go assuming that it's going to be open and you can go under, you may find out that it's not. It's jammed full of rocks and logs and sand. So come prepared, worst case, to get over this rock face. If what you're seeing in the video makes you nervous, and it would be wise to call the BLM before you come and see if you can get the most current conditions to see if the rabbit hole is open or not. So once you get past this obstacle, you're about a mile or so from the campsites now. The canyon opens up. There's campsites up on the banks on either side. There's paths coming up off of the canyon floor that you can see in the sand. If you're day hiking, continue on. If you're camping for the night, pick a campsite and enjoy. When we've done this, we were too tired to want to do anything once we got to the campsites. We set up camp, relaxed, went to bed. We've done 2 nights at minimum at the campsites. The second day, we like to spend hiking further down the Paria and just checking it out, and going back up Buckskin for a couple of miles to just see it when you can relax and not have to worry about carrying a pack or being anywhere at any particular time. We just found that that's our favorite day because the last mile or so before the campsites is I consider the most amazing part of the hike itself. And if you're like us, you're going to be too fucking tired to enjoy it. So it's nice to have that second day to come back and just take your time and appreciate the area. Ideally, you've made it to this point in the video because one of the most important parts of the hike itself is water. There is water in the canyon. You've seen video of it. If you want to drink that, knock yourself out. I don't think I would. Once you get to the campsite, there's water flowing. Its nickname is the cesspool. They come up with mules and horses and go up to the rabbit hole Boulder Fall, and they shit in that creek all the way there and all the way back if you're into drinking that. You also have the option at the confluence, which is about 1/10 of a mile past the campsites, to filter water out of the Paria. Again, there's a lot of horse traffic and stuff. The water's a little bit muddier than I personally like, but there's a water source as well. First reliable spring is 5 miles down the Paria. We typically bring enough for 2 days. We have enough water for the camp that night, and then we have enough water to get down to the spring the next day and fill up and come back to camp. Paria itself is a beautiful area. It's got the red walls. It's wider than Buckskin. Typical river or creek walking. You're in the water. You go across to the other bank, back and forth, back and forth. You can hike all the way down that to Lee's Ferry and make that your full trip. I believe that adds about 24 miles onto the trip. There's plenty of campsites on the banks, just so you know if that's your planned itinerary. But again, we went out through Whitehouse. So assuming that you're leaving through Whitehouse, when you're ready, pack up your gear, head out. Again, about 1/10 a mile or so from the campgrounds, you want to turn left up Whitehouse. The exit out Whitehouse, it's a really cool slot canyon towards the beginning. Eventually it opens up and it becomes full sun exposure. So you'll be walking fully exposed for a lot of the hike, so plan it accordingly. After about 7 miles, you want to exit the wash to get to the trailhead where your car is parked. Have where you parked your vehicle marked on your GPS, and just keep an eye out for the exit on the right to get to it. It's easy to walk right past it. It's not a clear defined trail at that point, so know where you're going and make sure you don't walk past it and add unneeded miles onto your trip. So that's Buckskin Gulch. Hopefully you enjoyed, and go check the place out. It's absolutely amazing. One of my favorite hikes ever. We keep going through the brutality of it and saying we won't go back, and we keep going back anyway because it's just amazing. Enjoy.